Welcome to the Fungi Finders. We're doing episode 4, and today we'll be out by the Ipswich Riverwalk. There's a short trail that you can take along the river. I think there have been some work going on and they're planting new things along the riverside. But surprisingly, there's quite a lot of mushrooms on the way that I have discovered a couple days ago, yesterday. And so we're going to go along the river and look at them and see what we can find. We have a wonderful example right here on the main road in Ipswich. There's a big maple tree growing right here in someone's yard, and on it is I think the biggest mushroom of this type that I've ever found. It's the spring mushroom. Right now it's June, but we still have some spring mushrooms around. This is the type of a polypore that is called dryad saddle. That's the common name. And the other common name you also might have heard is peasant's back. It kind of looks like a saddle, the top texture on it. It's a polypore that's edible. This one is in a really, really good shape. It's super fresh. And by fresh, I mean it's quite soft, squishy, and you can see the pore texture on the bottom. You could do a spore print from this one if you have a big enough plate to put the mushroom on. But otherwise, this is a great edible, and people like to pickle it or put it in a stir fry. It does have a taste of a cucumber or watermelon rind. So I personally picked one of these a couple weeks ago, and I thinly sliced it on a mandolin, and then I cooked it a little bit with vinegar and sugar and just put it in a pickling jar, and now it's kind of like pickled cucumbers, despite the fact that it's a mushroom. And I think we're gonna maybe try to take the bottom one off to show you how fresh it is. And this one has collected actually, ooh, it's a little tough to take off, but you'll still see how fresh it is. This one has a water in it from the rain. Ooh, it's spilling out, and I'm trying to get it off the tree, but it might be a little tricky. But still, oh my God, here we go. There's the beautiful dryad saddle, and it's great. And also, if you're ever harvesting this one thing to do, and it's easy to do with this mushroom I'm going to show you, is to actually scrape the spore texture off it. Okay, it should come easily off, and if it's not coming off, that means it's maybe a little bit past prime. But it should come off, and if it comes easily off, then you would just kind of slice it up, and then you can cook with it. And as this one is not letting us take the texture off anymore, then probably it would not be good for consuming. But anyway, it's still very beautiful. Here you see the kind of a saddle look to it. That's why people call it that, I guess, or a peasant back. And the scales are maybe a little bit kind of hairy when the mushroom is dry, right? But this one has obviously had some water on it. So it's a little soft on the top, but it's still wonderful to look at. And it does smell like cucumbers or watermelon rind. So I'm just gonna leave it here since no one's gonna be eating it, but it's very, very beautiful. And if you come down towards the bridge, check it out. So here we have a mushroom that is kind of related or wild cousin of the button mushroom that you might know from the store. It's a group called Agaricus mushrooms, and this one should be a blushing red wood scale mushroom, because if you cut it and look at it later, it should turn red, maybe with the time. But you can also see on the ground one that is already turning red. If you point out to the one right here, you can see how the top of the mushroom is turning red. So the Agaricus species, there's lots of edible ones in there, but this one is not recommended for lots of people because you may experience GI issues, and obviously this is not in a stage to be eaten anymore. So they're a little bit past prime. The Agaricus group of mushrooms is also called pink bottom, because when the mushrooms are young, the gills are actually kind of a powdered pink color. And as they turn older, as they mature, the gills they start turn kind of a chocolate, almost purple brown. So you will see them, and they will have this special smell. Yes, definitely. So these are smelling of iodine. So if you find anything like this, these will not be the edible ones, but there's lots of other Agaricus mushrooms. And as I said, they're related to the mushrooms that are in the store that everyone knows. So we have a whole cluster right here. They're a little past prime, obviously. And they're a bunch on a hill, and this is just one of the mushrooms that we will find on the Ipswich Riverwalk. So come with me and I'll show you some more. Also found a crown-tip coral mushroom. Coral mushrooms are a whole group of mushrooms that look like corals under the sea, and they come in many different colors. This one is kind of a pale brownish, kind of a noodle color, I would say. They can be orange, it can be bright purple, and even red. And some of these mushrooms are edible. They can grow out of the wood or out of the ground. Supposedly the ones that grow out of the wood are the only ones that you should eat. I never try them. They're very fragile if you find them. And as you can see, it is called crown coral tip mushroom because it has little tiny crowns at the top. You should see that on a close-up image that we have. They're just going right there by the water on a log, and sometimes you can find whole fields of them, and they look very beautiful. So if you find these, they're all they're coral mushrooms. They have different types, and I think we do have some that are bright red ones, and you should stay away from those. I never tried them personally, as I said, but they look very beautiful. We found another little mushroom. It's very tiny, but there's a huge group of these mushrooms that you might see a lot in the woods. They're kind of overlooked, and there's really not that much to them, but you will see them a lot in the woods growing out of the wood, even in the grass. This is a group called Mycena. This one has a striation on the top, which is the little ridges all around the edge. And they can come in many colors. Their stem, the stipe, is very stringy. And they're almost kind of see-through, and they can come in many colors. They can be pale brown, even bright green color, or sometimes kind of a reddish color and white. And they're just kind of decomposing whatever is in there, and I don't think it's going to hurt this tree. There is a special group of mushrooms that you might spot when you go out and about. You can see them in your lawn, you can see them in the mulch or in the leaves, usually in the grassy area. We call them kind of collectively LBMs, which stands for little brown mushrooms. There's lots of them. They kind of all look alike. They have a stringy stipe or stem. You might see the striation, which are the little ridges on the mushrooms. And they go away very quickly if you see them in the lawn. The other name for them is haymaker or mower's mushrooms. And just to be aware of them, it's something that not lots of people are interested in. And also, if you would actually want to know what type of a mushroom it is, you might have to study it very carefully or do the DNA sequencing on them. So watch out for the little brown mushrooms when you go out into the woods. So here we have I think so, based on my best guess and my best ID feature, something called common Satarawa mushroom. They grow in the clusters usually on decomposing debris or wood. There's some old wood here, and there's a whole group of them under these bushes, if you have noticed. They do have chocolate-colored kind of gills that are barely attached to the stem of the stipe. They're very crowded. The stems are always white and kind of very stringy, fibrous, as you can see, very much like that. These are not supposed to have any distinctive odor or taste, so they're definitely not in a group of edible mushrooms, but they do look lovely, and there's so many of them. Yesterday there was a small group of young ones, but now they're all opened up with all the rain that we had, so obviously they're thriving here and they're decomposing what is left here, or anything else. And I do want to show you here something. As I talked about in the previous episodes, there's something called spore print that is important for IDing mushrooms. And if you find a mushroom in the woods, in the nature, there might be a natural spore print. If the caps are overlapping, then when you move it, you're going to see that these spore prints are indeed dark chocolate brown color. So if I hide it like that, the spore print is in there, and when you move the cap, you can see the dark color on the edge, right? And here too, these are the spores that fell off from the cap that was covering it up, right? So if you don't have a spore print at home, or if you don't want to wait, sometimes you might be lucky and find a spore print in nature. And this happens a lot with lots of other mushrooms, and that makes it much easier to ID, obviously, right in the nature. We made our way almost to the end of the Ipswich Riverwalk, and right here is kind of a little area where there's a hay rolled up in some wire, and you can see mushrooms actually poking or pushing up the wire here. They have lots of power in them. These are the mushrooms, and it's quite firm, and they're able to make their way through the wiring or even push it up. And I know there is an indigenous word that means the power of the mushroom that pushes it up overnight through the ground. And I don't think there is a word for that in English. It's a one word, and we're going to put that on the screen. And I always thought it was very interesting. And mushrooms will grow for lots of things, even like the concrete or in between the rocks, obviously. But here you see the power and work, and how is it pushing up all the mushrooms overnight. These were not here last night or yesterday when I was here, so those all grew up overnight. We came up on some more mushrooms, this time growing in a mulch under the bushes, which happens a lot in lots of yards. You don't have to worry about these mushrooms. I get sometimes requests from people like, what do I do? Is it dangerous? Are they dangerous? Lots of these tiny little mushrooms are very harmless. This one, particular one, has gills and kind of a meaty stem. And you can still see a mycelium attached to the bottom of the mushroom. The white strands, that's the mycelium. And mycelium can be many different colors. Some of the mycelium will change the color as it gets picked. Not this particular one, but for example, stinkhorns. They start with the white mycelium, and once you pick it and once you cut into it, it turns purple. And I do have some pictures of that. We can show that later. And so this is the gilled mushroom with the stem, and it's kind of a shape that's kind of a curved on the top as compared to the other mushrooms that we have growing down there still in the mulch. Those have much less meatier stem or stipe, as you can see. It's very soft, and also their gills are completely different. I'm going to compare them here on the hand. You see the color, but also the texture. These have little things at the end. They're kind of wavy, and the way the gills are attached to the stem here are different than the kind of notch at the end, and these are barely attached. And as you see, this mushroom is very conical, and it will always be like this. It starts as this, and it never opens up completely, unlike this mushroom that will start as a little button, and then it's kind of a flat cap, right? We made it to the end of the Ipswich Riverwalk, and we saw some mushrooms that are growing right now in June and maybe in springtime. And I want to thank you for joining us today. If you have any pictures that you would like to share with us, please send them to the email at the ICAM, or you can send them to the Essex4Race email at gmail.com. I will have some walks coming up with the Ipswich Public Library, so check out their schedule or their website. There will be one on July 22nd and also sometime later in September. All the walks with the library are free. You come along with me and you get to learn about mushrooms. Usually the walks are around the Dowbrook Reservation or maybe at the Willowdale State Forest. So they're fun to join. It's a small group of people. Thank you for watching us again today, and we'll see you next time on Fungi Finders.